Hey grade 9, welcome back. Just going to go over lesson 5, rearranging formulas. So by the end of this unit, or by the end of this lesson rather, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to rearrange formulas with multiple variables to associate for a specific variable. So what we've been doing right now is we've kind of just been isolating for only one variable. We're going to learn how to do this with multiple variables, and they won't necessarily give you a number answer, but you might get a variable answer. And then you're going to know how to isolate using the balance method. Always using the balance method. So, solving for a variable or isolating for a variable means that you get the variable by itself on one side of the equal sign while everything else is on the other side. It's very similar to what we were doing with isolating for one variable, right? We were putting all the variables on one side, right? So all the x's on one side and you were putting all the numbers on the other. You're basically trying to do the same thing right now, but now you're working with multiple numbers. By reversing the order of operations, formulas can be rearranged in the same way equations are solved. So if you're given something like d equals rt, you can solve for r by saying r is equal to d over t. And we'll go over how to do that. So what did we do to solve for r? So we had d is equal to r multiplied by t. If I'm trying to get r by itself, right, which is what we've been doing all this time, we've been trying to get the variable by itself, I just need to get rid of this t over here. How can I do that? If I know it's r multiplied by t, I can just do divide by t. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other, so I'll have t over here. These two t's will cancel each other out because t over t will be just 1, and then I'll be left with r. So it'll say d is equal to, d over t is equal to r, or you can write it as r is equal to d over t. Okay, so let's solve and rearrange some of the following formulas for the variable indicated. So it's ABC equals d. We want to solve and rearrange for b. So we know that it's a multiplied by b multiplied by c will give me d. If I want to get rid of this c and this a, I'm just going to have to do the opposite. I'm going to have to divide by a and divide by c, right? So I can divide by ac. Those two, these two will cancel out. These two will cancel out. And whatever I did on this side, I have to do on this side. So I'm going to divide by a and c. I'm left with b is equal to d over AC. Okay, moving on. You have area is equal to base times height divided by 2, and I want to get height by itself. So I'm going to do area is equal to base times height divided by 2, right? And I'm just going to isolate for that h. So first things first, I'm going to get rid of this over 2 by multiplying both sides by over 2. And I'll be left with 2a equals base times height. Now I want to get rid of that base, so it's base times height. I'm just going to divide by base. So height is equal to 2 times area divided by base. Super easy. Cool. And I'm just going to stop recording this for a moment and put in my headphones, okay? Okay. And so hopefully you can just hear me a little bit better now. So if we had c equals 20 plus 4n, and we wanted to isolate for n, you would follow the same method. So you have c 20 plus 4n, right? You're going to isolate for that 4n at first because you want to get that 4n by itself. So I'm going to do c equals 20 minus 20 on both sides. Oops. Didn't leave myself enough room there, so I'm just going to put c minus 20 minus 20 plus 4n. C minus 20 will leave equals 4n. And I want to get the n by itself, so I'm going to get rid of the 4, same way you would regularly. And you're going to be left with c minus 20 over 4 equals n. And you can't solve this anymore because you don't know what c is, right? So it's just a way for us to get everything where we need it to, depending on what we need to solve. And this will be important when we're doing our word problem lessons, because you're going to want to use different equations and isolate for specific variables. So if we go here, we have x times a plus b equals f, and we're trying to isolate for b. So first things first, regardless of what happens, you have to get rid of the x on this side, right? So you can just go ahead and get rid of it. In this situation, you actually don't need to do distributive property because you're just multiplying by x. So you can just divide both sides by x. So this will cancel each other out. So you'll be left with a plus b equals f over x, right? And since you want to get b, you're going to do minus a over here, right? So it's going to be a minus a over here. So a minus a, so it's going to be b equals f over x minus a. And again, that's as much as you can simplify it by. You can't really do anything else, so we'll leave that as is. So I wrote these as a challenge for you. I'm obviously going to go and solve them now, but I would actually really like if you pause this video right here and try to solve it by yourself, right? This is a great way for me to check your understanding. You don't need to hand it in, but it is a great way for you to check your own understanding, right? Do some self-reflection. Be like, okay, do I actually understand the concepts that are being sent, right? And if you get it, then that's awesome. And if you don't, at least you will have tried once, and then you can go see where you're going wrong, and that can help you reflect further on how you can do better the next time. So I always say you learn more from your mistakes than you will ever learn from your successes. So at least take a shot, try solving this, and then when you come back, see what the answer is. All right, so I'm going to assume you took a break and that you did walk through it once. So I'm going to go answer these now. Okay, so I'm given v equals pi times r, and I'm just going to write it out a different way. Pi times r squared times h divided by 3, and I want to isolate for r. And I just want to highlight that and point it out. When we get there, we'll look at that, okay? Alrighty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to first just get the r squared by itself. So first things first, I want to get rid of this 3 over here. So I'm going to multiply by 3 on this side, and I'm going to multiply by 3 on this side. So I'm left with 3v. So I'm just going to leave it as a 3v because I like it that way. 3v is equal to pi times r squared times h. So these cancel each other out. Right? Now, I want to get rid of the h and the pi. So they're both being multiplied by r. So I can get rid of it like this. I can just say pi and h. And I can do the same thing here. I can say pi and h. So then I'm left with 3v equals pi times h equals r squared. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So please just follow through with me on like what's happening. So I'm just going to change this because in case you decide to go back and watch these solutions, you can see what was being moved when. Okay, so now you're left with this r squared. I'm just going to make a quick note here. The opposite of squaring something, so squaring r to the exponent is square root. So if I want to get rid of that squared sign, what I have to do is I have to square root this entire equation. And if I got to square root the left side, or sorry, the right side, I have to square root the entire left side. Okay? So then my answer would be, because these two would cancel each other out, my answer would be square root 3v over pi h is equal to r. And if I had said v is equal to 20, and this might not work out because I'm literally making these up as I go. Pi is equal to pi, h is equal to 10. We should, in theory, be able to plug those numbers in and figure out what r is, right? And what is r? So let's do that. So we have 3 times 20 divided by pi times 10, right? All of this under the square root sign. So then the square root sign kind of functions as its own bracket, so you got to do what's inside the square root sign first. So you're going to do all of this first. So you're going to do 3 times 20, which will give you 60, right, over 10 pi, right? So I'm just going to put in 10. I have a pi button on my calculator, so I just put it in. You could just do times 3.14. Either one works, right? So then 10 times pi is 3.14, all under the square root sign. So I'm going to do 60 divided by 31.4, which is going to give me 1.91. And then I'm just going to put all of that under a square root sign, right? Square root, all of that. So I'm just going to square root 1.19, or sorry, square root 1.91. And that's going to give me 1.38, and that's my answer. That means, therefore, radius is equal to 1.38. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing over here with with FG, whatever that means. Right? We're going to go with G. That's G. And I'm going to want to isolate for H. So I'm going to say S is equal to 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h, right? What I could do here, it's a little bit more complicated. So I could say S. I can factor out the 2 pi r. I can pull that out. So I can say 2 pi r, right? And if I divided both sides by 2 pi r, so let's just divide both sides, both of those two, by 2 pi r. So if I pulled that out, right, I would have 2 pi r. If I pulled 2 pi r out of here, I would just have 1 r left, right? And then if I pulled 2 pi r out of that one, I would just have h left. Okay, so you can do that. It's called factoring, right, which is just basically the opposite of expanding. Because now if I expanded this in, right, so if I had 2 pi r plus h, and I expanded this in, you would be left with 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. So I'm just doing the opposite of the distributive formula. Okay, doing the opposite of distribution is just factoring. And this is a more challenging question, so it's making you think about how to do this. I haven't taught you this yet. Sorry about that. So now I have S is equal to 2 pi r plus h, right? And so in order to get rid of that r plus h, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2 pi r plus h. I'm going to divide by 2 pi r, divide by 2 pi r, right? This will cancel out. So I'll be left with S over 2 pi r is equal to r plus h. And I want to get that h by itself, so I'm going to get rid of the r. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm left with S over 2 pi r minus r is equal to h. And that r needs to be on its own, not like in the numerator. Okay, and that's your answer. So these were the more challenging questions. Okay, and that is the answer to that. Hope this helped. I'm going to share this. I'm going to post the solutions on D2L as well. I will see you tomorrow.